Ladies and gentlemen, we are all here today because deep within us is the desire to be better, to do better, and to achieve greatness. But desire alone will not change your life. Dreams will remain dreams until you act. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is bridged by one thing: action. Too many of us spend our days waiting for the right time, the perfect conditions, or a sudden wave of motivation. But let me tell you something, those moments rarely come. Life doesn't reward intentions, it rewards actions. The key to breaking free from procrastination, fear, and doubt is simple: force yourself to take action. Don't wait until you feel ready, because feelings will deceive you. Feelings will tell you to stay in your comfort zone, to delay, and to settle. But destiny is not a product of comfort, it's a result of courage and movement. Think about this: a seed doesn't grow because it's comfortable in the soil. It grows because it's forced to push through the dirt, stretch toward the light, and face the elements. Likewise, you must push through the obstacles in your life and take steps, even when it feels uncomfortable. Start small if you have to. Take that first step, make that first call, write that first sentence, or learn that first skill. Momentum builds when you move. The hardest part of any journey is starting. Once you begin, you'll find that every step gets easier. Understand this truth: action defeats fear. Fear grows in the absence of action, but when you take that first step, fear loses its grip. When you move forward, you tell fear, you don't control me. And let me be clear, forcing yourself to act doesn't mean ignoring your challenges. It means rising above them. It means taking responsibility for your future and refusing to allow excuses to dominate your life. The greatest enemy of your potential is not failure, it's inaction. Today I challenge you: stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to live your dream. Stand up, step out, and move forward. Take action, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's scary, and even if it's inconvenient. You are not here by accident. There is greatness inside you. But that greatness will remain buried unless you force yourself to take the steps to uncover it. Remember, the world doesn't change because of what you plan to do, it changes because of what you actually do. So rise up, take the first step, and then the next, and then the next. The future you dream of is waiting, but it won't wait forever. Act now. Force yourself to move and watch how your life transforms. Action is the powerful force that drives us from our current state to the place where we can experience growth, fulfillment, and success. It is not enough to have desires, dreams, or even plans. These remain intangible until we take deliberate action. Action is the bridge between where we are today and where we want to be. It is the difference between potential and progress, between ideas and outcomes. Too often, people stand on the edge of their potential, waiting for something external, some sign, some push, some perfect moment to begin moving toward their goals. But the truth is, without action, dreams will remain dreams, goals will remain distant, and our potential will remain untapped. Every successful person, every achiever understands that action is the key to progress. They know that no matter how much they may plan, envision, or hope, unless they move into action, the life they desire will forever be out of reach. Action requires courage. And sometimes it demands more than just enthusiasm or a good idea. It requires stepping into discomfort, facing fear, and moving forward even when the path is unclear. It requires taking one step, then another, and another, without knowing exactly how it will all unfold. But what makes action so powerful is that it does not demand perfection or complete clarity to begin. Action just demands movement. Think of it this way: your goals are like a distant land that you dream of reaching. It might seem far away, and the journey may feel overwhelming. The terrain may be unfamiliar, and the obstacles may seem insurmountable. But in reality, you can only move toward that land when you begin walking in its direction. As you take each step, your understanding of the terrain improves, and the distance doesn't feel as far as it initially did. The mere act of moving toward your goal helps you gain momentum, insight, and clarity that would have remained out of reach had you stayed stagnant. Inaction, on the other hand, is like standing still at the starting line of a race, hoping for the race to come to you. The reality is that the race does not wait for you, it continues to move forward. And if you do not act, you will always remain on the sidelines, watching others pass you by. Procrastination, doubt, and fear are the thieves that steal your time, your energy, and your opportunities. They convince you that now is not the right time, that you are not ready, or that the risk is too high. But what you fail to see is that by not acting, you are letting time slip away, time that you can never get back. In the time you spend overthinking, waiting, and second guessing, others are already moving forward. They are making progress, even if it is not always perfect. The real difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not in the resources they have, but in the actions they take. The initial steps of action may not always seem monumental. It might be a small phone call, a single email, or even a simple decision to start a task. But those small steps compound over time, creating momentum that builds into something much greater. The key is consistency. Even if the steps seem insignificant at first, it is the cumulative effect of repeated action that creates significant results. Every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to your destination. Think of a train moving forward. It requires a powerful engine to get it started, but once it is moving, the momentum of that movement propels it forward with far less effort. The same principle applies to your life. Taking that first step might require effort and willpower, but once you begin to move forward, the momentum of your actions will carry you further than you ever thought possible. One of the greatest challenges people face when it comes to taking action is fear. Fear of failure, fear of making mistakes, fear of the unknown. But fear is not an enemy, it is a signpost. Fear is a natural response to stepping out of your comfort zone. It exists precisely because you are doing something new, something important, something that challenges you. Fear is not meant to stop you, it is meant to encourage you to move forward with greater determination. When you feel fear, it is simply your body's way of telling you that you are about to break through to a new level. Don't let fear hold you back. Acknowledge it, embrace it, and use it as fuel to propel you into action. What often holds people back is the belief that their actions must be perfect or that they must have everything figured out before they begin. But this is a fallacy. Perfection is an illusion, and no one ever has everything figured out at the start of their journey. The most successful people are not those who waited until they were perfectly ready. They are the ones who started. Despite their imperfections, doubts, and uncertainties, they took action and learned along the way. With every action they took, they gathered new information, developed new skills, and adjusted their approach. Progress is born from taking imperfect action, not from waiting for perfection. If you wait for the right moment, you will wait forever. The right moment is now. Action, no matter how messy or unpolished, is always more valuable than waiting. One of the most powerful aspects of action is that it creates feedback. Inaction, on the other hand, leaves you in a vacuum, unsure of whether your approach is correct or not. Action provides clarity. It allows you to test your ideas, evaluate the results, and make necessary adjustments. Without action, there is no feedback, and without feedback, there is no growth. Even when you take action and fail, that failure is a lesson. It teaches you what doesn't work and helps refine your approach. Each failure is a stepping stone to success. But if you never act, you will never know what works or what doesn't. Another important aspect of taking action is the sense of ownership it gives you over your life. When you take action, you take control of your destiny. You stop being a passive observer of your own life and become an active participant in shaping your future. Action empowers you. It shifts you from a position of waiting for things to happen to a position where you make things happen. You are no longer waiting for opportunities to come to you. You are creating your own opportunities. By taking action, you take responsibility for your life and your outcomes rather than leaving them to chance. Inaction, on the other hand, often stems from a fear of failure, a lack of confidence, or an inability to see the potential rewards of action. But the more you delay, the more you allow doubt and fear to control your decisions. Action, even when it is difficult or uncomfortable, is always better than inaction. It forces you to confront your fears, build your resilience, and move towards your goals. And the more you act, the more you learn about yourself, your abilities, and your potential. Every action you take becomes a building block for the person you are becoming. The most important thing to remember is that progress does not happen by accident. It happens through deliberate, consistent action. You cannot sit back and hope for success to come to you. You must take the steps necessary to move toward it. Even if the path is unclear, even if the future seems uncertain, action moves you forward, one step at a time. It is the consistent effort, the willingness to move despite uncertainty, and the courage to act in the face of fear that leads to the transformation you seek. If you want to close the gap between your current reality and your dreams, there is no other way but to act. Action is the catalyst for change. It is the force that transforms dreams into reality, ideas into achievements, and potential into success. No matter where you are in life, no matter what challenges you face, taking action is the key to unlocking the next level of your life. So do not wait, do not hesitate. Step forward today and let action carry you to the life you were meant to live. There is a common trap that many of us fall into, waiting for the perfect conditions. We often tell ourselves that once the circumstances are just right, once we have the right amount of money, resources, time, or support, then we will take action. We believe that everything must align perfectly before we can move forward. But the truth is, waiting for the perfect conditions will only keep you stuck in place, forever longing for a moment that may never come. The reality is that the perfect time to act often does not exist, and if we continue to wait for it, we risk losing our opportunity to achieve the life we desire. Every day that you wait for the perfect moment, you are essentially saying to yourself in the world that you do not have enough right now to begin. This mindset assumes that success, progress, or achievement can only happen when everything is aligned perfectly. But in truth, success is often born from doing things imperfectly, from moving forward without knowing exactly how everything will turn out. It is in the action itself that clarity emerges. It is through imperfect steps that we refine our approach, gain experience, and find out what truly works. Consider the world of nature, where nothing ever waits for perfect conditions. Waiting for the perfect conditions creates a false sense of security. It allows us to feel safe in our inaction, telling ourselves that we are being responsible or cautious, when in reality, we are simply avoiding the discomfort of starting. We can convince ourselves that just one more thing is needed before we take the leap, but that one more thing never arrives. The reality is that perfect conditions are often an illusion, a mental construct we create to avoid stepping into the unknown. Life does not wait for us to be ready. Time continues to move forward, and while we stand still, the world moves on. Opportunities are lost and new challenges arise. People who are ready to take action will move ahead, even if the conditions are not perfect. This doesn't mean they don't encounter difficulties, they do. But they don't let those difficulties stop them. They don't wait for things to be just right. They act, adapt, and learn along the way. Every journey begins with a single step, and it's often the most difficult one to take. The thought of taking that first step can be paralyzing, especially when we believe that we need more time or more resources. But action creates momentum. The simple act of moving forward generates its own energy. The more you do, the more you learn, and the more you adapt. When you take that first step, you send a message to yourself and to the universe that you are ready. You no longer wait for permission. You create your own opportunities by simply choosing to move forward. One of the most powerful tools we have at our disposal is our ability to adjust and adapt. Life is rarely predictable, and conditions are almost never ideal. But this is where we have an advantage. We can learn, adjust, and make course corrections as we go. Waiting for the perfect conditions keeps us stuck in the illusion of control, as if we could somehow plan every aspect of our journey ahead of time. The truth is that the unexpected is a part of life. It is the unpredictability of our journey that makes it worthwhile. It is in the process of adapting, of facing the challenges that come our way, that we grow and evolve. Think about any great achievement in history, whether it's the discovery of new lands, the creation of revolutionary technology, or the building of great civilizations. None of these successes were born from waiting for ideal conditions. The individuals or groups involved acted, sometimes boldly and recklessly, but always with the belief that action would lead them to the results they sought. The Wright brothers did not wait for the perfect conditions to fly. They built an airplane out of necessity, trial, and error. They learned from every failure and adapted their approach until they succeeded. They didn't let the fear of imperfection stop them. They embraced it. When we wait for perfect conditions, we forget that we are also the ones who have the power to change our circumstances. Often, the reason we feel that the conditions are not right is that we haven't yet done the work to create the change we want. We have the ability to shift the environment around us by taking action. If we wait for external factors to change before we act, we give away our power. But when we act first, we take control of the situation. Even if things are not ideal, the act of moving forward creates its own momentum and allows us to adapt to the circumstances as we go. The fear of failure often accompanies the desire for perfect conditions. We convince ourselves that if we wait until everything is just right, we can avoid mistakes. But the reality is that mistakes are inevitable, and more importantly, they are essential for growth. Failure is not something to be feared or avoided. It is a teacher. It shows us what doesn't work, allowing us to adjust and move closer to success. If we wait for the perfect moment to start, we are simply postponing. The inevitable mistakes are part of the process, and we must learn to embrace them as part of the journey. Waiting for perfect conditions also leads to missed opportunities. Opportunities rarely come with a perfect set of circumstances. They are often disguised as challenges or obstacles. When we wait for everything to line up perfectly, we miss the chance to seize those opportunities, to learn from them, and to grow through them. Life is about being willing to step into the unknown, to take the risks that come with pursuing our dreams, even when the conditions are not ideal. The people who achieve great things are not those who wait for the perfect moment. They are those who make the moment perfect by acting in spite of uncertainty. One of the most significant aspects of acting despite imperfect conditions is the growth that comes from it. The process of taking action teaches you lessons that cannot be learned by waiting. It develops your resilience, your problem-solving abilities, and your capacity to handle uncertainty. If you wait for the ideal moment, you deny yourself the opportunity to learn and grow through your experiences. The more you take action, the more you learn to navigate obstacles, the more creative you become in finding solutions, and the more confident you become in your ability to handle what comes your way. Perfectionism often plays a significant role in the desire to wait for ideal conditions. We convince ourselves that if we do not do something perfectly, it is not worth doing at all. But this mindset paralyzes us and keeps us from moving forward. In reality, perfection is a moving target. The perfect conditions we imagine may not even exist in the way we envision them. And even if they do, we will likely outgrow them as soon as we get there. Success is not about waiting for perfection. It is about making progress, even if that progress is messy and imperfect. The sooner we can let go of the need for perfection, the sooner we can begin to take action and move toward our goals. When we stop waiting for the perfect conditions, we begin to embrace the process of growth. We become more comfortable with uncertainty, more resilient in the face of setbacks, and more confident in our ability to handle whatever challenges arise. Conditions will never be perfect, but that is precisely what makes the journey worthwhile. The act of moving forward, of taking the first step despite uncertainty, builds the foundation for everything that follows. As you move toward your goals, you will find that the path may not be perfect, but it will always be worth walking. By acting now without waiting for everything to align perfectly, you give yourself the chance to grow and achieve things you never thought possible. Every day spent waiting is a day lost. Every moment spent thinking about how things could be better is a moment that could be spent making them better. Perfect conditions may never come, but the perfect time to act is always now. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in life. It is what carries us from a place of uncertainty and hesitation to a place of progress and achievement. Yet, the most critical thing to understand about momentum is that it is not something you can wait for, it is something you create. The moment you take the first step toward your goal, you begin the process of building momentum. It is that initial action, that first movement, which sets everything else into motion. But the key is to start. Without that first step, momentum will never build. And without momentum, it is almost impossible to achieve anything of significance. Momentum doesn't just happen on its own. It's not something that is granted to you because you want it. It's something that you have to cultivate and create for yourself. And the beautiful thing about momentum is that it grows. What starts as a small action, often done with little confidence or understanding, can quickly snowball into something much larger. Once you begin to move, you will notice that each subsequent step becomes easier. The fear of starting, the hesitation to act, will gradually diminish as the momentum you've created carries you forward. Think of momentum like pushing a car. When the car is stationary, it takes tremendous effort to even get it moving. The car resists your push and it feels almost impossible to move it. But once the car starts rolling, it becomes easier. You might still have to exert force to keep it going, but the resistance is much less. It's the same with your goals and ambitions. At first, everything might feel hard. You may not know exactly how to proceed. You may be filled with doubts and you might feel like you're not making any significant progress. But when you push through that initial resistance, momentum takes over. That first step is the hardest one, but it's also the most important one. Once you take it, the rest of the journey becomes far more manageable. One of the reasons starting is so difficult is because of the mental barrier that holds us back. Our minds are often filled with doubts and fears, convincing us that we are not ready or that we don't have enough information or resources to succeed. But here's the truth: waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for everything to be lined up, only leads to stagnation. Perfect conditions rarely exist. Life is inherently uncertain, and there will always be reasons to wait. But if you let those reasons dictate your actions, you'll never get started. It is only by pushing through that initial hesitation and acting anyway that you begin to build momentum. Momentum isn't just about physical movement, it's also about mental and emotional movement. Once you take the first step, your mindset begins to shift. You start to feel a sense of accomplishment no matter how small the task was. That feeling of accomplishment fuels your confidence, which in turn fuels more action. As you continue to move, you learn more, adapt more, and refine your approach. Each step forward adds to the growing sense of possibility, and the more you move, the more you want to move. Momentum builds upon itself, and as long as you continue to take action, you will find that it becomes easier and easier to keep moving forward. The opposite is also true. If you don't start, you remain stuck. You stagnate. The longer you delay taking action, the harder it becomes to get started. Momentum can't build if there is no action to begin with. Every day spent waiting is a day spent in inertia. The more you hesitate, the more fear and doubt take hold. But when you make the decision to start, you break free from that inertia. You regain control and you begin to take the reins of your life. Starting is not about having everything figured out. It's about moving despite the uncertainty. Many people avoid starting because they feel they don't have all the answers. They believe they need to know exactly how to succeed, or they fear that their efforts will be wasted if things don't go as planned. But this way of thinking is limited. The truth is that you can't know everything up front. You can't predict every obstacle or anticipate every challenge. The only way to find out what works is to begin. Once you start, you will learn. You will discover the path as you go. You may need to course correct. You may need to adapt, but that's the beauty of it. Starting is where the learning begins. Many of us are conditioned to believe that we must wait for a perfect moment, for everything to be just right before we act. But the perfect moment rarely comes. Life is messy. It's full of obstacles, distractions, and unknowns. If you keep waiting for the perfect time to begin, you will find that time never arrives. Instead, the most successful people are the ones who start before they feel ready. They understand that momentum doesn't come from waiting, it comes from acting. It comes from making the first move, regardless of the circumstances. The feeling of doubt and uncertainty that comes with starting is universal. Everyone experiences it. No one starts with all the answers. Everyone who's ever achieved something significant has faced that initial hesitation. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is that the successful ones don't wait for certainty, they act despite their doubts, and in doing so they create the momentum needed to carry them forward. They understand that action precedes clarity. When they take that first step, the path becomes clearer, and they gain the confidence to take the next step. One of the biggest reasons people fail to start is because they are afraid of failure. They fear that they will make mistakes or that their efforts won't yield the results they desire. But the truth is that failure is not the enemy, inaction is. Failure is simply a stepping stone on the path to success. Every failure provides valuable lessons and insights that you can use to improve your approach. When you take action, you give yourself the opportunity to fail, learn, and grow. If you don't start, you don't give yourself that opportunity. Momentum, in fact, grows from failure. It's in failing forward that we build resilience and gain the experience necessary to succeed. You also need to recognize that there will never be a time when everything feels perfect. Life is unpredictable. No matter how much planning you do, you will never have complete control over all the variables. But this shouldn't stop you from starting. The key is to act now with what you have and trust that the momentum you create will help you navigate whatever challenges arise. When you start, you begin to move with life instead of resisting it. You begin to adapt to the circumstances, learn from the process, and make the necessary adjustments along the way. Starting is the first step toward creating the future you want. Every goal, no matter how big or small, begins with action. If you want to change your life, improve your health, build a business, or create any other form of success, it starts with one thing: starting. There is no magic formula, no secret to success other than the willingness to take that first step. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start. The rest will follow. What's most important is that you don't allow the fear of starting to hold you back. Understand that momentum is built from the smallest of actions, and those actions compound over time. Each step you take creates new opportunities, new insights, and new experiences. Momentum builds confidence, and confidence drives you to take even bigger steps. But without starting, none of that can happen. The journey toward your dreams begins with the courage to take that first step, no matter how uncertain or imperfect it may seem. Remember, momentum comes from starting. It comes from taking that first step, no matter how small, and then continuing to move forward. The moment you act, you begin to create the force that will propel you toward your goals. And as long as you keep moving, momentum will continue to carry you forward. The first step is all it takes to begin the journey. Take it now and watch how momentum transforms your life. Fear is one of the most paralyzing emotions we experience in life. It holds us back, clouds our judgment, and often prevents us from taking the actions necessary to fulfill our potential. Whether it's the fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown, or fear of making mistakes, it has the power to keep us trapped in a cycle of inaction. The truth, however, is that fear doesn't disappear on its own. It must be confronted, and the best way to confront it is through action. Action has the power to overcome fear. It is only when we step forward, despite our fear, that we begin to see the lies that fear tells us and discover the strength within ourselves. Fear is a natural human response designed to protect us from danger. However, in many cases, fear is not grounded in reality, but in our perception of potential outcomes. Fear of failure, for example, often stems from the fear of judgment or the belief that our worth is tied to our successes. Yet failure is not the end, it is simply a part of the journey. But in the moment of fear, this rational understanding is clouded, and the mind can make the threat seem much greater than it is. We begin to feel paralyzed, unable to move forward, because our minds are focused on the potential dangers or negative outcomes instead of on the possibilities that exist through action. One of the most powerful ways to overcome fear is by simply acting. When we take action, we are no longer at the mercy of our fears. In fact, action is the antidote to fear. When we act, we create forward momentum, and momentum dissipates fear. The more we act, the less room fear has to dominate our thoughts and emotions. It's like standing in a dark room, afraid of what might be lurking in the shadows. But when we turn on the light and start moving toward what we fear, we quickly realize that the shadows were nothing more than our imagination running wild. Action brings clarity, and clarity exposes fear for what it truly is, a product of our minds. Fear thrives on uncertainty. It exists when we don't know what will happen, when we feel that we have no control over the outcome. The antidote to this uncertainty is not to wait until we feel certain, but to move forward despite the uncertainty. When we take action, we create control. We shift from being passive observers of our lives to active participants. It's not about having all the answers or knowing exactly what will happen next. It's about moving, adapting, and learning as we go. Every step we take in the face of fear brings us closer to understanding that we are stronger, more capable, and more resilient than we realize. The fear of failure is one of the most common forms of fear that holds people back from taking action. Many individuals hesitate to pursue their dreams because they are afraid that they will fail. But the truth is that failure is not something to fear, it's something to embrace. Failure is not a permanent condition, it's simply feedback. When we fail, we learn, we gather information about what didn't work, and this information allows us to adjust our approach and try again, this time with more wisdom and experience. Failure, in fact, is an essential part of success. Without it, we cannot grow. We would never learn what works unless we first experience what doesn't. If we allow the fear of failure to control us, we will never take any action, and we will never experience success. But if we take action in the face of failure, we learn to navigate it and move through it. Failure only becomes permanent when we stop trying. Every time we take action, we face the possibility of failure, but we also open the door to learning and growth. Action helps us realize that failure is not the end, it is simply a part of the process. And the more we act, the more we learn, and the less power failure holds over us. Fear of judgment is another powerful force that prevents people from taking action. We worry about what others will think, how they will perceive us, or whether we will be criticized for our decisions. But the truth is that no one else has the power to define our worth or our success. The opinions of others, though often significant in our social lives, cannot dictate whether we should act or not. The fear of judgment is a reflection of our own insecurities and our desire for approval. However, when we take action, we take control over our own narrative. We stop giving others the power to determine our worth, and instead, we define it for ourselves. Every successful person has faced criticism. Every person who has ever done something remarkable has been judged by others. It's not the absence of judgment that determines success. It's the willingness to act in spite of it. When we take action, we stop worrying about what others might think, and we start focusing on what we want to achieve. Fear of judgment becomes irrelevant when we realize that our actions speak louder than the opinions of others. Fear of the unknown is yet another force that keeps people from taking action. The unknown represents uncertainty, and humans are naturally inclined to seek certainty and security. But the truth is that the unknown is where growth happens. It is in the uncertainty that we find the opportunity to push our boundaries and discover what we are truly capable of. The unknown is where all possibility exists. It's where innovation is born, where new ideas are formed, and where greatness is achieved. When we act, we venture into the unknown, and in doing so, we transform it from a place of fear into a place of possibility. It's not that the unknown becomes less uncertain when we act, it's that we become more resilient, more adaptable, and more capable of handling whatever challenges arise. Action builds confidence in our ability to navigate the unknown. We no longer see uncertainty as something to fear, but as something to embrace. Each step we take into the unknown shows us that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. And with each step, we build the confidence to move further into the uncertainty with greater ease. Fear also tends to isolate us. When we are afraid, we withdraw into ourselves. We begin to overthink, to imagine worst case scenarios, and to dwell on all the reasons why things might go wrong. This isolation makes the fear feel even more overwhelming, and it keeps us stuck in inaction. However, when we take action, we break free from that isolation. We engage with the world, and we realize that the world is not as scary as we thought. Taking action puts us into motion, and motion connects us with others, with opportunities, and with the feedback we need to continue moving forward. Action is a bridge between us and the world around us. It brings us out of our minds and into reality, where we can see that the world is much more cooperative than we imagine. When we take action, we start to see that the world is not as dangerous or as difficult as our minds have made it out to be. The challenges we face are not insurmountable, they are simply part of the process. And by taking action, we move through them, learning as we go. Each step we take diminishes the grip that fear has on us. It allows us to realize that fear is not a sign that we should stop. It is a sign that we are growing, that we are moving in the direction of something meaningful. There is no secret formula to overcoming fear. But there is one undeniable truth: action is the key. The more you act, the less fear will control you. Every step you take toward your goal is a step toward breaking free from the grip of fear. When you move, you show yourself in the world that you are stronger than your fears, that you are capable of handling whatever comes your way. Action is the proof that fear is only temporary and that you are far more powerful than any fear that may arise. So instead of waiting for fear to disappear, take action. Let your actions overcome your fear and let them lead you to the success and fulfillment you desire. Responsibility is a word that often carries a heavy connotation. It suggests accountability, ownership, and the obligation to act in a way that reflects our values and goals. But in its deepest sense, responsibility is a reflection of power. It is the realization that you have the ability to shape your life, that you have the authority to define your future, and that you are the one who controls the outcome of your potential. When you take responsibility for your potential, you are not simply accepting what happens to you in life, you are actively engaging in the process of creating the life you desire. It's a decision to acknowledge your capabilities and limitations, to face your fears and doubts, and to take ownership of your actions, regardless of the circumstances. The potential that lies within each of us is vast and often untapped. It's not always apparent, and it doesn't always unfold on its own. Potential is not something that magically manifests when we wish for it. It's something that requires action, effort, and most importantly, responsibility. When we fail to take responsibility for our potential, we are essentially relinquishing control over our lives. We let external forces dictate our path. We blame others for our circumstances, and we accept mediocrity as our reality. But when we take responsibility for our potential, we step into the power that lies dormant within us. We decide to cultivate that potential, to nurture it, and to push ourselves beyond the boundaries of what we thought was possible. Taking responsibility for your potential means understanding that you have the power to change your circumstances, regardless of where you are now. It means realizing that your current situation is not a reflection of your worth, but of your choices. It's easy to look at life and feel as though everything is happening to us: circumstances, the actions of others, or the situation we find ourselves in seem to hold all the cards. But the truth is, we have far more control than we often believe. The key is to recognize that responsibility is not about perfection or control over every aspect of life. It's about ownership of your actions, your attitude, and your decisions. The first step in taking responsibility for your potential is to stop playing the victim. It's easy to fall into the mindset of blaming external factors for your lack of progress. Maybe your circumstances are challenging. Maybe the people around you aren't supportive. Maybe you've encountered failures along the way. But if you continue to blame these factors, you are giving away your power. You are allowing the world around you to dictate your actions instead of taking control and making decisions that will move you closer to your goals. Taking responsibility means choosing to look inward, to examine the choices you have made, and to realize that your future is shaped by your actions, not the actions of others. When you take responsibility for your potential, you also recognize that growth is not something that happens on its own. It's a deliberate process. Too often, people wait for the right moment, the right opportunity, or the perfect set of circumstances to begin working toward their goals. But this kind of thinking can hold you back from realizing your potential. Growth requires effort. It requires you to step out of your comfort zone, to face challenges, and to push through discomfort. By taking responsibility for your potential, you acknowledge that growth is a process that you must actively engage in. You take the initiative to seek out opportunities for learning, to surround yourself with the right people, and to invest in your own development. Taking responsibility for your potential also means facing the reality of your limitations. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of unlimited potential, to dream big and set lofty goals, but the truth is that no one is immune to the limitations of time, resources, and abilities. The difference between those who reach their potential and those who don't is not that they have no limitations, but that they take responsibility for overcoming them. They don't let their limitations define them. Instead, they use them as fuel to push harder, to be more creative, and to find ways to work around or through them. Taking responsibility for your potential means acknowledging that while you may not have control over every aspect of your life, you do have control over how you respond to those limitations. Another critical aspect of taking responsibility for your potential is understanding that your actions today directly impact your future. Too often we make decisions based on immediate desires or short-term gratification without considering the long-term effects. We procrastinate, make excuses, and avoid the hard work that is necessary to move forward. But when we take responsibility for our potential, we understand that every decision counts. The small actions we take today, the habits we form, the effort we put in, the sacrifices we make will determine the life we live tomorrow. Taking responsibility means choosing to act in alignment with your long-term goals, even when it's difficult or inconvenient in the moment. There is also a deep connection between taking responsibility for your potential and developing a mindset of self-discipline. Potential without action is just a dream. It is a possibility that is never realized. Self-discipline is the bridge between potential and achievement. It is the ability to focus on what matters, to avoid distractions, and to stay committed to your goals, no matter the obstacles in your path. Taking responsibility for your potential means committing to the process of development even when things get tough. It means pushing yourself to do the work, to stay consistent, and to keep moving forward even when the results are not immediately visible. It's about understanding that success is not an event, but a journey that requires patience, perseverance, and persistence. Taking responsibility for your potential also involves managing your mindset. It's about choosing to believe in yourself and your abilities, even in the face of doubt. Often we allow negative thoughts, fears, and insecurities to dictate how we perceive ourselves and what we think we can accomplish. But when you take responsibility for your potential, you stop letting these limiting beliefs control you. You choose to think positively, to adopt a growth mindset, and to believe that with effort, persistence, and learning, you can achieve anything you set your mind to. The thoughts we entertain about ourselves shape our reality. And by taking responsibility for our potential, we choose to cultivate a mindset that supports our success. One of the greatest barriers to taking responsibility for our potential is the fear of failure. Failure often carries a stigma with it, and many people avoid taking responsibility because they fear making mistakes or facing setbacks. However, failure is an essential part of growth. It is not something to be avoided, but something to embrace. Every failure provides valuable lessons that help us refine our approach and become better at what we do. When you take responsibility for your potential, you learn to see failure as feedback, not as a reflection of your worth. You understand that failure is not permanent, and that with each failure, you are one step closer to success. Another significant aspect of taking responsibility for your potential is learning to embrace accountability. We often hear about the importance of being accountable to others, but the most powerful form of accountability is the accountability we have to ourselves. It is easy to make excuses, to rationalize our lack of progress, and to justify inaction. But when you take responsibility for your potential, you refuse to let yourself off the hook. You hold yourself accountable for your actions, your choices, and the direction your life is heading. This level of accountability is not about being hard on yourself. It's about being honest with yourself and acknowledging that you are the one who is in control of your life. Taking responsibility for your potential is a transformative choice. It's a decision to stop waiting for someone else to change your life for you. It's about accepting that you are the creator of your destiny and that your potential is something you must nurture, develop, and act upon. When you take responsibility for your potential, you stop living in a passive way. You begin to approach life with intention, with purpose, and with the understanding that your future is something you create today. It's not about perfection or avoiding mistakes. It's about recognizing that you are capable of more than you think and that you have everything you need to achieve your dreams. When you take responsibility for your potential, you unlock the door to a life filled with possibility, growth, and success.